When we were growing up, and maybe it's somewhat that way still, at Easter time we always got something new to wear. Usually it was the boys, it was shoes and socks. Mom would make some kind of dress for the girls. When we got older, it was mostly make sure that you get your shoes polished, and you might get a shirt or something, or maybe a tie. And I'm not really sure if it was because Jesus had been raised from the dead, or if it was because we were going over to my Lutheran grandparents and we needed to look as good as the rest of our cousins. But in any event, we always did that. And it got me thinking about the fact that all the stuff that we associate with Easter, like pretty dresses and lilies and bunnies and eggs. I asked a guy this morning if he saw the Easter bunny in his yard. He said, "No, but if I do, I'm going to shoot him," because he got into my greenhouse and ate about 30 of my trees. So he wasn't very happy. But what is it that we're celebrating on this beautiful morning? Now, if we went to religion class or had our catechism, we know that Jesus rose to open the gates of heaven. So what's that really mean to you? What's that really mean to me? I'm afraid that for many people, that Easter becomes kind of a historic event, that this was the day that this happened, like Jesus came out of the tomb and we have 6 more weeks of Easter or something like that. It's a historical thing that happened once. And if we look at Easter that way, like the signing of the Declaration of Independence or anything like that, then we're wrong. Because it's very different than just something that happened once. When we talk about what the resurrection is really all about, it's about the fact that whether you believe in God or not, some people think that at the end of time, well, I didn't believe, so I don't have to worry about being in line. Don't worry, they'll be in line. But it means that at the end of time, there isn't an end of time. And that eternity is ours. That's what the Easter season is about. Now, that begs the question then, if we know that we don't have anything to say about our dying, we do have a lot about saying about which turn signal we're going to use on the day of judgment. So we're either going to go north or south, if that's how you look at it, for example. But the fact of the matter is eternity is the gift. Eternity is the gift. Now, why is that important, you might ask yourself? Well, have you ever had a bad day? Have you ever lost a loved one? Have you ever been mad at heck at somebody? Have you ever thought about just giving up? We need Easter for those days. We need Easter to remind us that what's right in front of us isn't all there is. God help us on our worst days if that's all we believed in. Every time that I celebrate a funeral, and I'm at the cemetery, every time, and I look at that casket, I think, this isn't the end. This nice park with all these headstones is just kind of a holding place. Because it's not the end. If it was the end, a funeral would be a horrible thing, and we could never deal with it. But because we have the promise of the resurrection, we know that it's not the end. In fact, in one of the prayers of the funeral mass, it says, "Lord, for your faithful people, life is changed, not ended." Changed, not ended. The resurrection reminds us of that. Now, there's one little catch in all of this. In order for us to realize that, we need to go through some little dyings. So what are those little dyings? They're the things that I mentioned. It's when you have a bad day. It's when you lose a loved one. It's when you'd like to give up, when your kids do stuff, or your marriage is in a mess, or whatever it is. Those are the little dyings that happen to us in this life. And when those things happen to us, we say, okay, I don't like this at all. In fact, I might really be mad about this right now. But it's not going to have the final word. The scriptures tell us, "O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" These little dyings, these little things that we go through, no matter how difficult they are in this life, will never, ever, ever stop the next life. And so most of the time when you and I are having a bad day, most of the time when we get into that kind of a mood, that kind of a funk that we don't know what we're going to do, we need that resurrection attitude adjustment to remind us that we're just passing through. Thank God this mess that I'm in right now is not going to last forever. That's a promise. That's what the resurrection has in store for us. You know, Cato, this morning we baptized a little fat-faced little girl. If there was no idea about eternity, that would be such a stupid thing to do. I told the parents this morning, I said, you know what? You could have just stayed at home and given her a bath in the sink. You wouldn't have to got her all dressed up. You wouldn't even have to put a tie on, Daddy, and come to church today. Because without eternity, nothing else makes sense. Without eternity, we could have stayed home and watched the ham bake today. But because of eternity, we remind ourselves, and our world needs to be reminded of that. Just look at the headlines. We need to be reminded that this ain't all there is, what's right in front of us. That there's eternal life. That's our perspective. That's our goal. And on our worst days, we forget that. We forget that. And so our response in this life is, what am I going to do in this life that will have an effect in the next life? It's not like, well, if I'm bad and I don't care about God, nothing will happen. Oh, I got news for you. The scriptures testify to that. That's why our choice in this life is so important. That's why every day our attitude, even about the little things that are a pain in the neck, are so important. Because little by little they form us. We're either focused on this world, like this is all there is, or we take our worst days and we say, you know what, thank God that you're in charge and I'm not. So as we continue to pray and as you continue to celebrate, I still don't know what anklets and little white patent leather shoes and flowered dresses have to do with the resurrection. I get an idea what bunnies might give us an idea about things continuing to generate all the time. But I don't know about the rest. We don't have to know that. We can still celebrate however we want to celebrate, as long as we don't lose sight of the prize. And the prize is eternal life. Thank God.